Hello. Yeah. Hello, everybody. And if you have heard that the recording in progress, we will be recording today's lecture. Um, Good evening. Thank you very much for joining today's Modern History of Ukraine, the Path of Eurointegration. Um, I would like to say thank you, say a couple of thankful words towards Spectra Center of Excellence EU at the Slovak University of Technology in Bratislava, and especially Professor Maroš Finka, the thematic group Transboundary Planning and Governance of Association of European Schools of Planning, and of course the Embassy of Ukraine in the Slovak Republic for promoting this lecture, and especially and personally Associated Professor and Doctor of Science Natalia Yehorchenkova, who is with us today, present offline. The lecture is co-funded by the European Union and organized within the Erasmus Jean Monnet project PM4U. And as you have heard, the lecture will be recorded. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ivan Balikin, and I am a research associate at the chair of contemporary history in the University of Mannheim in Germany, where I teach and design courses on Ukrainian history, predominantly modern or even contemporary Ukrainian history, culture, politics, law, including innovative formats, integrating virtual reality in teaching contemporary history of Ukraine. I had a project of introducing VR technologies in one of my disciplines. And at the moment, I am teaching the world history of state and law using online computer game that we have developed with my team. So I'm also into the innovative teaching in the higher education institutions. I also serve as a guest professor at the Karlsruhe Institut für Technologie, KIT, in Karlsruhe, which is really nearby from Mannheim. And in Mannheim, my newly established the topic of research is or focuses on the politics of memory, digital narratives, and ideological transformation with the current habilitation project, examining how social media reshapes historical memory in Europe. Alongside with my academic career, I work and I am the co-founder of Progressilny. It's the NGO, so organization of representatives of different stakeholders within the university network in Ukraine. So we are not only teachers, but also administrative personnel of the Ukrainian universities and students, of course. And we are up to date, and we develop large-scale digital and AI-based training initiatives for our members. Throughout my career, I promote interdisciplinary and innovative approaches in both research and teaching, combining history, law, and digital technologies to create engaging and forward-looking educational experience. And if you go back to my previous slides, as you can see, Here I have PhD in history, and I also have a degree in law, which helps me to view, let's say, on the same processes, but with the usage of different methodology from different sciences. I know there are two schools. Some are preferring to stick to the classical approach, like pure science, that historians should only use historical methods. Lawyers should use only legal methods. Or representatives of social studies should use only sociological methods, and they are not allowed to be combined. I'm not the representative of this kind of school. I think that they should be mixed, because as a pure humanitarian, I have the approach that all of the social humanities are, or they do have the same object of the investigation or research, but from different angles. Yeah. And yeah, let's skip all or finish the introductional part, and let's stick to the part about the Ukrainian contemporary history. And as you can see here, that Ukraine is the biggest state in Europe. Of course, we should pay or keep in our mind the occupational territories that were occupied by Russian Federation. But according to the constitution of Ukraine and to the borders that were established in 1991, the Ukrainian state is the biggest in Europe. Another thing that characterize Ukraine and its state is also the not only the geographical position, but also landscape, let's say, and the soil that Ukraine has. And the day before yesterday, we were talking about and we were mentioning the soil of Ukraine, very fertile soil that is used for the agriculture. And this is the territory predominantly of central, southern, and southern eastern parts of Ukraine. But this is what it is, what it is by now, as you can see. Yeah, and but I would like to make a remark that I like the design of the card, but we will talk about it later, and we talked about it the day before yesterday, that here are two cities that are already, or they were already renamed. So we have here two cities that have still, oh no, this is the accurate map, sorry. This is the accurate map with accurate namings. But the question of naming or the toponomical culture or politics is also very important to understand where the Ukrainian state is now and where it is heading. I will start my historical retrospective about Ukraine from Kievan Rus, because I like to speak about the statehood of different states on the territory of modern Ukraine, not on the tribes that were living. Of course, the life or the culture, civilization on the territory of Ukraine emerged earlier, but I will start from medieval times. Kievan Rus was a state and later an amalgam of principalities in Eastern and Northern Europe from the late 9th to the mid 13th century, encompassing a variety of policies and people, including East Slavic, Norse, so Norse, in other words, Scandinavian, right, tribes or representatives of those people. Finnic as well, and it was ruled by the Rurik dynasty, founded by the Varangian, so Scandinavian Viking, other words, Prince Rurik. The modern nations of Belarus, Russia, and of course Ukraine all claim Kievan Rus as their cultural ancestor, with Belarus and Russia dividing their names even in their modern day names of the states. At its greatest extent, in the mid-11th century, Kievan Rus stretched from the White Sea in the north to the Black Sea in the south, and from the headwaters of the Vistula in the west to the Taman Peninsula in the east, uniting the East Slavic tribes. And here, you can see the emblems of, you can see the two emblems of Volodymyr the Great and Yaroslav the Wise. So these are tridents. And of course, on the sweatshirt of Volodymyr Zelensky, we can see also another version of it, which is in the national emblem of Ukraine, this trident that has roots in medieval times. Afterwards, after, let's say, 13th century, after very interesting and entangled times of developing of other states like Polish kingdom, then emergence of Moscow Tsarat or Tsardom. We can say that the statehood, national statehood, or even the first national statehood of Ukrainians as a nation took place during the Cossack Hetmanate, or in Ukrainian Hetmanshchina. Officially, it was called the Zaporizhian Host of Army of Zaporizhia. And it was a Cossack state in the region of what is today central Ukraine between 1648 and 1764, although its administrative judicial system persisted until 1782. But of course, already under the reign of Russian Empire by then. The Hetmanate was founded by the Hetman of Zaporizhian Host, Bogdan Khmelnytsky, during the uprising of 1648-1657 in the eastern territories of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. A 5 Ukrainian hryvnia banknote depicting Hetman Bogdan Khmelnytsky. And of course, you can see the not only banknotes, but also the coins that are depicting Bogdan Khmelnytsky. So he's one of the most prominent figures for Ukrainian statehood, if not the most important in the history, back in the history of Ukrainian statehood. Very interesting, controversial figure in important figure in Ukrainian history. And once more, Volodymyr Zelensky, as a president, this is his inauguration in the building of Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. And of course, visuals and pictures, images are very, very important in, like in the meanings. Because as you can see, you can clearly track the similar object in hands of Bogdan Khmelnytsky and Volodymyr Zelensky. Bulava, right, is the symbol of the major power in Ukrainian state, even by now. Establishment of vassal relations with the Tsardom of Russia in the Treaty of Pereyaslav of 1654 is considered a benchmark of the Cossack Hetmanate. In Soviet, Ukrainian, and Russian historiography, we can clearly see that it was the end of independent statehood, and it was, and then afterwards the history has very political, let's say, painting. It depends on who is investigating or researching further development of Ukrainian statehood. We'll talk about it once again a bit later today. The Second Pereyaslav Council in 1659 further restricted the independence of the Hetmanate, and from the Russian side there were attempts to declare agreements reached with Yuri Khmelnytsky, it's the son of Bogdan Khmelnytsky, in 1659 as nothing more than the former Bogdan's agreement of 1654. And the 1667 Treaty of Andrusovo, conducted without any representation from the Cossack Hetmanate, established borders between the Polish and Russian states. And, history repeats itself. Lots of people will disagree with me and will oppose me in saying that, but please pay attention to what is happening at the moment regarding the territorial integrity of Ukraine and those debates that are trying to exclude Ukraine from decision-making on its own territories. And in 1667, it was exactly the same. Polish or Commonwealth of Poland and Lithuania made a deal with Russian Tsardom about Ukrainian territories without including even the representatives, any sort of representatives dealing with the questions of Ukrainians on their soil. And the territory between Commonwealth, Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and Russian Tsardom were established exactly dividing Ukraine almost exactly according to Dnipro River or Dnieper River. And Ukraine from that time was clearly named Right Bank Ukraine and Left Bank Ukraine. Yeah. The Zaporizhian siege under a formal joint of Russian-Polish administration continued to exist as some sort of independence, but then after a failed attempt to break the union with Russia by Ivan Mazepa in 1708, the whole era was included into the government of Kyiv, and Cossacks' autonomy was severely restricted. And this is the second personality, very important for Ukrainian statehood and statehood building, is of course Ivan Mazepa. And here as well, you can see Ivan Mazepa on the banknote of 10 hryvnias and the coin of 10 hryvnias. Afterwards, Catherine II of Russia officially abolished the institute of the Hetman in 1764. And in 1764 until 1781, the Cossack Hetmanate was incorporated as the Little Russia, so-called Little Russia Governorate, headed by Petro Rumyantsev or Pyotr Rumyantsev, with the last remnants of the Hetmanate's administrative system abolished finally in 1781. So in 1781, even any kind of autonomous rights were abolished in Russian Empire. And afterwards, as you can see, I decided, but of course, once again, many of historians will argue with me, but afterwards, the history of independent Ukrainian statehood was pretty much absent, except maybe between the end of the First World War or the October Revolution in Russian Empire, and up till 1921, there were attempts to re-establish Ukrainian statehood in 3 or even 4 forms, but they were not so successful. So I have decided to skip that part, but I would like you to know that there were attempts to re-establish Ukrainian statehood previously. Afterwards, all territories or all territories of Ukrainian representatives or nationals and statehood were recreated in the republic within the Soviet Socialistic Union. And the whole name of the state was the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, abbreviated as Ukrainian SSR or USSR sometimes USSR. And it existed between 1922 until 1991. And in the anthem of the Ukrainian SSR, it was referred to simply as Ukraine. Under the Soviet one-party model, the Ukrainian SSR was governed by the Communist Party of the Soviet Union through its Republican branch, the Communist Party of Ukraine. But then afterwards, starting from late 80s, 1989, and then especially in 1990, and then finally in 1991, the process of proclaiming the independence started. So the Declaration of State Sovereignty of Ukraine was adopted on the 16th of July, 1990 by the recently elected parliament of the Ukrainian Soviet Socialistic Republic. The document decreed that Ukrainian SSR laws took precedence over the laws of the USSR and declared that the Ukrainian SSR would maintain its own army, its own national bank, with the power to introduce its own currency. And also the symbolism of this slide, I give it also some symbolical meaning, that we can see here 2 parts, the parliament and the people. And you will understand later why it is important for me to notice these 2 parts in the process of independence, in re-establishing or re-proclaiming the independence. Then later, next move, the declaration also proclaimed that the republic has that the republic has the intent to become in the future a permanently neutral state that doesn't participate in military blocs, and that it would not accept nor produce nuclear weapons. Once again, this proclamation in the declaration of proclamation of the independence of Ukraine played a severe trick in contemporary history, in contemporary Ukrainian history regarding the sovereignty and ability to make decisions. Shortly before, Ukraine had done it, other Soviet republics had also proclaimed the sovereignty, these being Azerbaijan, Georgia, Uzbekistan, and Moldova. I'm not mentioning Baltic states because Baltic states proclaimed their independence. And if you don't know, please, check out in the internet. So I'm not, stopping at the moment, giving this lecture. What is the difference between sovereignty and independence? So Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania proclaimed their independence, while other states their sovereignty. After that, Belarus, Turkmenistan, Armenia, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan. So Ukraine was the 9th among 15 republics. The declaration established the principles of self-determination of the Ukrainian nation, rule of the people, state power, citizenship of the Ukrainian SSR, because before that it was as in the European Union, so it was like common citizenship, or like in the other federal states. Territorial supremacy, economic independence, environmental safety, cultural development, external and internal security, and international relations. Also, on the 16th of July 1990, Parliament created Ukrainian SSR citizenship, while guaranteeing citizens their right to retain USSR citizenship. The Act of Declaration of Independence of Ukraine was adopted by the Supreme Soviet, so Supreme Council, Parliament, of the Ukrainian SSR on the 24th of August 1991. The Act re-established Ukraine's state independence. And I know that a couple of you can read Ukrainian, and it's clear and very interesting to observe and to read that the independence was re-established. It was not established, it was re-established. So this is the reason why I have started from medieval times, medieval history of Ukrainian statehood, because modern Ukraine continues the tradition of Ukrainian statehood. But then, and I would like you to recall these two pictures of the parliament and the people. A referendum on the act of So parliamentarians decided to ask people what do they think about their decisions. It's a joke. And an overwhelming majority of more than 92% of voters approved the Declaration of Independence made by the Verkhovna Rada on the 24th of August 1991. Verkhovna Rada is the Ukrainian name for its parliament. Yeah. And then afterwards, the Constitution of Ukraine, its fundamental law of Ukraine, is a very important document for state building. The Constitution was adopted and ratified on the 5th session of the Verkhovna Rada, and on the 28th of June 1996. Since 1996, the public holiday Constitution Day is celebrated on every 28th of June. And it's, you see, I have highlighted the date. I guess people here understand Cyrillic or could read or could guess Cyrillic. So 28 червня 1996 року. And you could naturally ask, the Declaration of Independence was made in 1991, and then the Constitution was adopted in 1996. What did happen between this or during these 5 years? It was constitutional crisis. It was indeed constitutional crisis in Ukraine, mainly about who is responsible for what. Who is the president of Ukraine? What is the parliament of Ukraine, Verkhovna Rada? What is the government of Ukraine? And from a legal perspective, it's also a very interesting, peculiar case that the natural question arises, what kind of constitution was used? And of course, it was the Constitution of 1978, which was written, of course, for the socialist state, social, not only state, but society relations. And it was hard to implement the norms of constitution when in 1991, Ukraine has shifted rapidly from planned economy into the market economy. And of course, it's not only about market, buying and selling things. It's more about the culture, general culture of a nation, of how people's relations with each other, relations between government and citizens, and etc., etc., and especially about who is the president of Ukraine. Because according to the Soviet constitution, there was not such a position as a president of Ukraine. And but in 1996, passing the constitutional crisis, passing really hard times for Ukraine, modern constitution of Ukraine, it still acts, was adopted, and in 2004, amendments were adopted that significantly changed Ukraine's political system. These changes are sometimes referred as the 2004 Constitution. And if anybody remembers, these changes were made by a political establishment during the reign of Viktor Yushchenko, president of Ukraine, Viktor Yushchenko. And those changes, they touched the constitution regarding what type of republic Ukraine is. Presidential, parliamentary, or parliamentary presidential republic. And during the changes or amendments of 2004, Ukraine shifted from the strong presidential part to the strong parliamentary part. So Ukraine, starting from 2004, Ukraine became with more responsibilities and power of Parliament of Ukraine. So it started to be a parliamentary presidential republic. But in 2010, the then president of Ukraine, Viktor Yanukovych, reverted these changes on the basis of a ruling made by the Constitutional Court of Ukraine. And following the events, I will also pay attention to this, let's say, comeback of the Constitution of 1996. So in 2010, Yanukovych, with the help of Constitutional Court, reverted, changed back to the strong presidential power. And following, of course, all these events of Euromaidan in 2013, 2014, the 2004 amendments were reinstated. So Ukraine came back to parliamentary presidential republic. So So this is the brief version of the history of reborn of modern Ukrainian statehood. But curious what will be next? What are the next steps? And some of you that were present the day before yesterday, I will a little bit repeat what was told, because I guess for today's lecture, it's also, and for those people who are not present on Tuesday, it's also important, crucial to understand. The political dialogue between the EU and Ukraine began in 1994, not in 2022, when the Partnership and Cooperation Agreement was signed. And the full name of this document is Partnership and Cooperation Agreement between the European Communities and their member states and Ukraine. Because once again, in 1994, the European Union was not the same as it is now. The document focused on economic and social issues, as well as on the need to improve public administration and guarantee a free press and civil rights. It was signed on the 16th of June, 1994, and ratified by the law of Ukraine, dated on the 10th of November, 1994. I have highlighted the ratification. What is ratification? Ratification is the process when international agreements that were conducted by the representatives of the state are ratified by the parliament. And then they become the part of national legislation. So they are mandatory to follow. Because when, for example, two presidents or two diplomatic delegations, prime ministers, doesn't matter, they sign some sort of agreement, it is not yet fully adopted, it is not ratified by their parliaments. So when this document is ratified by the parliaments of these two parts, then it will be implemented fully. So this is the gap between June and November. So this was the agreement signed by the EU with the countries of the former Soviet Union. And on the 19th of October 1995, Ukrainian sovereign state officially joined the Council of Europe. The Council of Europe is an international organization that promotes cooperation between all European communities in the field of legal standards, human rights, democratic development, legality, and cultural interactions. Also, Ukraine is a member of Eastern Partnership, of the EU Eastern Partnership Initiative, the founding summit of which was held on the 7th of May 2009 in Prague. Ukraine is one of the 6 post-Soviet states: Ukraine, Moldova, Belarus, Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, that are proposed to cooperate with the EU within the framework of the new multilateral framework that is expected to be created by the Eastern Partnership. And on the 28th of June 2021, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Belarus informed the parliament representative of the EU in Belarus about measures in response to the sanctions adopted by the EU towards Belarus. So Belarus is no longer participating in the Eastern Partnership program. Afterwards, the very big step in Eurointegration, especially Eurointegration in the process of trading and people movement, visa-free regime between Ukraine and the European Union. It's a status when Ukrainian citizens can travel within Europe for 90 days without any need to establish a visa. It was adopted, it started from the 11th of June 2017. I would like to repeat from Tuesday's meeting that in 2019, next step, crucial step for Ukraine towards Eurointegration was made. So on the 7th of February, the law of Ukraine, 7th of February 2019, the law of Ukraine on amendments to the Constitution of Ukraine regarding the state's strategic course towards full membership of Ukraine in the European Union and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And these changes were namely Article 85, that Верховна Rada Ukraine, so the Parliament of Ukraine, Article number 102, the President of Ukraine, and Article number 116, the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, the Government of Ukraine, ensure the implementation of the state's strategic course towards full membership of Ukraine in the European Union and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. The catalyst of Ukraine's European integration was the full-scale invasion of Russian troops into Ukraine, and on the 28th of March 2022, 28th of March, and full-scale invasion started on the 24th of February. The President Volodymyr Zelensky signed an application to join the European Union. The signing took place against the background of barricades and trenches erected in connection with the war. Then, on the 18th of April 2022, the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, handed over the first part of the questionnaire for obtaining the status of a candidate for EU membership to the head of the European Union representation in Ukraine, Mata Masikas. On the 9th of May 2022, Ukraine filled out the second part of the questionnaire. And on the 17th of June 2022, the European Commission in Ukraine, European Commission recommended that the European Council grant Ukraine the status of a candidate for accession of the European Union. Yeah. I would like to switch once more during today's lecture to a little bit another glance to these processes, and I would like to remember the one of two contemporary revolutions in Ukraine. And the first major one was called Orange Revolution, and of course, I guess you don't remember that, but maybe you've heard of it. And of course, the Orange Revolution was called because of the orange color that the team of future President Viktor Yushchenko was using promoting during the electoral campaign. It took place, it happened in 2004. So these are the pictures, most, at least for me, memorable pictures from that period. I was the student back then, and I remember the uprising of the spirit when Ukraine proclaimed for the first time in its history, the people of Ukraine proclaimed their willingness to incorporate more strongly, more severely, let's say, into the EU Eurointegrational processes. And yeah, here is the picture of meetings or rally for the support of future President Viktor Yushchenko. There he is on the banner, Hände weg, yeah, von der Ukraine. Putin, Hände weg von der Ukraine. Hands Off Ukraine, 2004. And yeah, and then afterwards, so it's not a new story, well, at least for the people who are analyzing contemporary history, who are paying attention for what's happening. And the next major happening is, of course, the Revolution of Dignity, which happened in late 2013, in early 2014. It had started from the uprising of the students. Then later, this movement grew into Euromaidan, the movement that was called Euromaidan, and then Euromaidan eventually transformed into the Revolution of Dignity. And here on the stage, you can see Європейську Україну, so European Ukraine. I guess we demand European Ukraine. Yeah, stop political repressions. And you can see here the image of Yulia Volodymyryevna Tymoshenko. Once again, one of the phoenixes of Ukrainian contemporary politics, the phoenix of Ukrainian politics. No matter what happens to her, she will rise once again. Very strong woman. From a personal perspective. And yeah, here are the barricades of that time of 2014 already. This is Maidan, so the central square of Kyiv, of our capital city. And as you can see, lots of tents. The stones from pavement are taken off and barricades were built. So these are images not from 2022 or 2024, 2025, from 2014. Yeah, once again, one of the most memorable images of Revolution of Dignity. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Most people do not remember, but the war of Russia against Ukraine goes on for 11 years. In 2014, Russia annexed Crimea and occupied territories in the east of Ukraine when Ukraine held, it was called ATO, anti-terroristic operation. And it's as a person who is who researches the politics of memory, so how or what so how it is decided, on what grounds, with which intentions, what to remember, what to forget, what to notice, what to not notice. And yeah, the war in Ukraine goes on starting from 2014, early 2014, from annexation of Crimea and eastern parts of eastern Ukraine. And yeah, so this was the anti-terrorist operation. Back then, it was, so to say, the hope for that it will be finished quickly. So the terrorists will be eliminated and yeah, everything will be fine. Mm-hmm. Later, the anti-terrorist operation was renamed. Yeah, I don't have this on this slide, but it was renamed to the Joint Forces Operation. It was very tough political discussion on who makes decisions there, who commands, who gives orders, because as from legal perspective, anti-terroristic operation is not the same as a war. and joint forces operation, it's, like one step closer to acknowledging what is happening actually at the moment. So not only forces that face terrorists who fight against terrorists, but all of them, joint forces operation. Regarding that, the Minsk agreements were a series of international agreements that sought to end the Donbass war fought between armed Russian separatist groups and the armed forces of Ukraine, with Russian regular forces playing a central part. The first, known as the Minsk Protocol, was drafted in 2014 by the Territorial Contact Group on Ukraine, consisting of Ukraine, Russia, and the Organization of the Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, with mediation by the leaders of France and Germany, and in the so-called Normandy format. Do you remember about that? No, I guess not. No? No? Okay. No, not a problem. But it's interesting that some of the information, there are gaps of information. After extensive talks in Minsk, Belarus, the agreement was signed on this 5th of September 2014 by representatives of the Territorial Contact Group, and without recognition of their status by the then leaders of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic, so-called DPR, and so-called Lugansk People's Republic, LPR. This agreement followed multiple previous attempts to stop the fighting in the region and aimed to implement an immediate ceasefire. So, yeah, some of these people you still remember. Yeah, two of them on the left, they're still in power, they're still representing their states. And in the center, Angela Merkel, François Hollande, and Petro Poroshenko, the president of Ukraine. So those people were designed to be, or proclaimed themselves as security guarantees. But on the 24th of February 2024, Russian Federation brutally invaded Ukraine once more. And it happened for the second time in contemporary history. If we skip, or if we decide to forget, the conflict of Tuzla Island, I guess in 2003, I guess about that nobody, like literally nobody remembers, when Russia in 2003 already attempted to annex territory of Ukraine. But then it ended with Ukrainian and Russian troops facing each other. But then they decided to, settle. Switching the topic, or not switching the topic, but another angle on the topic. So talking about the culture in general, understandings of what is the culture. At the moment, as most of you may know, the process of de-Russification goes on in Ukraine. But why? Because previously there was a process of Russification of Ukraine. And the Russification of Ukraine was a body of laws on a legal basis, decrees and other actions undertaken by the Imperial Russia and later Soviet authorities to strengthen Russian national, political, and linguistic position in Ukraine. Representatives of some nationalities were restricted in their access to education, military service, and careers. In post-Soviet Ukraine, Ukrainian remains the only official language in the country. However, in 2012, President Viktor Yanukovych introduced a bill recognizing regional languages, according to which, in particular, Russian language could be used officially in the predominantly Russian-speaking areas of Ukraine in schools, courts, and government institutions. And after the 2014 Russian annexation of Crimea and establishment of unrecognized Russian-supported militants in eastern Ukraine, Russification was imposed on peoples in these areas. So Russia's geopolitics south of its borders, and you can see here the map of CIA reported by the CIA. And the main actors in this process was Foundation Русский мир. Have you heard of it? Fond Русский мир. Good. Because it is prohibited at the moment in Europe, in most of European countries. But in Ukraine, it was actively opening its representative offices, and through, so to say, soft power or cultural influence, Fond Русский мир tried to influence the common people. Okay, tried to influence common people, to try to prepare them for later happenings. But it started long ago, as I have mentioned, during the times of Russian Empire. For example, in 1720, the decree of Peter I, Tsar of Muscovy, prohibiting the printing of books in the Ukrainian language and the removal of Ukrainian texts from church books. Later, in 1763, decree of Catherine II prohibiting teaching in Ukrainian language at Kiev Mohyla Academy. Kiev Mohyla Academy is the first Ukrainian university in Kiev. Then next year, in 1764, Catherine II's instructions to Prince Vyazemsky about the Russification on Ukraine, the Baltic states, Finland, and the Smolensk region in 1764. Later, very important, like in bad meaning for Ukrainian, the Valuevsky Circular of the 18th of July, 1863, was a decree issued by Pyotr Valuev. He was the Minister of Inner Affairs of the Russian Empire, by which many publications, such as religious, educational, and literature, recommended for the use in primary literature training or of the commoners in the Ukrainian language, were forbidden, except for belletristes works, so like texting each other, letters, and that's it. It was not yet prohibited. The circular has put the reason for the growing number of textbooks in Ukrainian or beginner-level books in Ukraine as the Poles' political interests and the separatist intentions of some of the Little Russians. And as you remember, Little Russians, this was the special term towards Ukrainians. The circular quoted the opinion of the Kyiv Censorship Committee that a separate Little Russian language never existed, doesn't exist, and shall not exist, and the tongue used by commoners, Ukrainian, is nothing but Russian corrupted by the influence of Poland. So the circular ordered the censorship committees to ban the publication of religious texts, educational texts, beginner-level textbooks in Ukrainian. Further restrictions were made by EMS ukaz. It was a secret decree of Emperor Alexander II of Russia, issued on the 18th of May, 1876, completely prohibited language usage in open print. This ukaz also forbade the import of Ukrainian publications and the staging of plays or lectures in Ukrainian language. So previously, it was the way to publish something abroad in Ukrainian and then to import it. Starting from 1876, it was prohibited as well. And it was named Ems, it was named after the city of Bad Ems, where it was promulgated. Bad Ems is a town in Rhineland-Pfalz in Germany. It's Western Germany. It is the administrative seat in the Rhineland Rural District. Later, here, this is Bad Ems. Later, during Soviet era, in 1961, the 22nd Congress of the Central Committee of the CPSU, Communist Party of Soviet Union, proclaimed the policy of merge of nations, which in fact meant the total unification of the peoples of the USSR under, of course, Russian language, Russian culture. Then later in 1974, the resolution of the Central Committee of the CPSU on preparation for the 50th anniversary of the creation of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, which for the first time proclaimed the creation of a new historical community, the Soviet people. For the first time, officially Soviet people in 1974, and the official course for denationalization. And at the moment, I have started this part from Russification, and at the moment, the whole, let's say, cultural movement in Ukraine can be characterized with this separation, with this phrase, separation from the Soviet past. And the part of this separation is called decommunization in Ukraine. And it started during and after the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, while the success of the Revolution of Dignity in 2014, the Ukrainian government approved laws that outlawed communist symbols. And for example, we have in Kyiv, we have the Arch of Friendship. And it's very symbolical. Of course, this is the former pictures because it is already redesigned. So as a person who investigates politics of memory, so what to remember, how to remember. So I will read it to you, so please pay attention. I guess it will be sad and sometimes even funny. So on the 20th of May 2016, the Ukrainian government announced plans to dismantle the Arch of Friendship as part of its decommunization laws. But this arch, it was opened on the 7th of November, 1982, commemorate the 60th anniversary of the USSR and the celebration of the 1500th anniversary of Kyiv. The director of the Ukrainian Institute of National Remembrance of Ukraine, of Independent Ukraine, stated in February of 2018 that a sculptural group of the monument should be removed according to the decommunization laws. You see, there are two sculptures, one of metal, another from granite, stone. So these sculptural groups. Okay, this one symbolizes Ukrainian worker and Russian worker staying hand in hand, holding Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic emblem. This one from granite, they symbolize the Pereyaslav Rada. Pereyaslav Rada is when Bogdan Khmelnytsky signed Pereyaslav Treaty with Muscovy Tsardom. Very important. So for the, and you know, the arch of friendship between Russian and Ukrainian people inside the Soviet Union. So for the revolution, for the contest, song contest, European Song Contest, Eurovision. In 2017, the Arch of Freedom, was temporarily painted as a rainbow and renamed the Arch of Diversity. It doubled as the symbol of the Kiev Pride Parade and was illuminated as a rainbow at night. I guess it's a funny way to give a new meaning to the sculpture or installation. We understand that Pride Parade and Eurovision is something that doesn't fit in the Soviet principles of values, let's say. And of course, it was a joke, like in the face to Russia to symbolize something, to make a proclamation that Ukraine is, let's say, leaning towards European values. In 2018, human rights activists put a temporary sticker on the arch that looked like a crack. Can you imagine? Very simple, but freedom, there is a crack in not freedom, friendship, there is a crack in friendship. This was and by the way, it is still there. It was designed to last for a couple of months as a symbol, but it is still there naturally, also symbolizing that this crack is still there in the friendship between two nations. This was a sign of support for political prisoners who are illegally detained in Russia and annexed Crimea. According to the organizers, the action aimed to draw attention to the fate of Ukrainian citizens, as well as to urge everyone to make as much effort as possible to free political prisoners in Russia. But as part of de-Russification, there is also de-Sovietization or decommunization movement, which is also, you remember that one of the previous slides, breaking, breaking the bridge or burning the bridges with the past, or like completely separating from the past. So this is de-Sovietization, decommunization, another part of it, and which is very well seen with the motherland. I also like to joke with my German students that motherland sounds not gender diversile enough, and in German language it sounds like more diversile, like Mutter Vaterland, so Mutter und Vater, so more diversitive. And this is the previous, of course. It's not the state of things that is now, because as you can see here on the forgot the word shield. Thank you. On the shield, there was the national or emblem of Ukrainian Soviet Socialistic Republic. But this emblem was changed into the Ukrainian national, not Ukrainian Soviet, but Ukrainian national emblem, the trident. And this how the motherland looks at the moment. So also changing the symbolism of certain things. Going back from Soviet communistic symbolism to national ethnic symbolism. On the 21st of May 2015, the decommunization laws entered into force. So the process of decommunization officially legally started in 2015, and according to which 878 settlements in Ukraine are were subjects to rename or of renaming. And you can see there, you can search in the internet, there is an interactive map in the internet where you can see how Soviet toponyms are changed into historical toponyms, ethnical toponyms. So once again, tearing the ties with Soviet past. And here is, for those of you who can read in Ukrainian, these are the names of major cities. As I have read, there are hundreds of thousands of them already that are that were renamed starting from 2015. De-Russification. After the Russian invasion of Ukraine on the 25th, after this invasion on the 25th of April of 2022, the mayor of Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko, announced the dismantling of the sculptural part of the monuments as having lost its ideological meaning. And we will go back to this sculptural group, right, of Russian and Ukrainian workers. And, you know, the next day, during the dismantling of this bronze sculpture, the head of a figure symbolizing Russian worker fell off. Unexpectedly, very surprisingly, and it was not designed. It was not designed. But once again, this performance meant something to show to the audience. And during the dismantling, the first thing was cutting off the head of Russian worker. The second sculptural composition made of red granite will be taken apart later. Last time when I was there, it was still there, but it was carried a little bit away from the Arch of Friendship, and it was covered with wooden blocks, so it was hidden. The arch itself is planning to be renamed and highlighted with the color of Ukrainian flag. And on the 14th of May 2022, according to the decision of the Kyiv City Council, it was named the Arch of Freedom. of the Ukrainian people. On the 15th of September 2023, Soviet symbols were removed from the obelisk Hero City Kyiv in the capital of Ukraine. So yeah, this is this obelisk. Here is the circus, National Circus of Ukraine. This is there is the Shevchenko Boulevard. And from this side, we are facing the former, I even forgot how it was named, Prospect Перемоги, the Avenue of Victory, victory in the Second World War. At the moment, it is called Berestейский. So it was renamed once again to its historical name. The city state administration, so the Council of Kyiv, decided on that, and the city state administration, as the executive body, dismantled the stars on the side, of the obelisk, and annotation board in Russian, and replaced the inscription 1941 with 1939, the year of the beginning of the Second World War. Do you know the significance of determining when the war started, 1939 or 1941? Do you know this, or do you want me to say a couple of words? According to Soviet tradition, the Great Patriotic War started in 1941. And before that, that was imperialistic, like fight between different imperialistic states. And not commemorating, of course, 1939, when Poland was, for the fourth time in its history, divided between Germany and Russia, when the Second World War started. It is also very important dates which are marking, marking the conscience of people who are knowing this. Illustration. Different countries with the experience of political illustration. You can see these countries on the slide. So these countries had the illustration processes, for example, after the Second World War. What is illustration? Illustration is when the, let's say, newly established government or political establishment decides whom to abolish from the access to the power, like former Nazis, for example, right? So they are not allowed to be in power in, for example, after the Second World War, Germany. So illustration refers to the removal from the public office of civil servants who served under Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych. In Ukraine, it's like those who served in the administration and power institutions under Viktor Yanukovych are displaced from the power nowadays. Do you know the significance of ruling or decision-making during the times of Yanukovych? So Yanukovych is blamed for, this inviting Russian troops. This was the president who invited Russian troops in Ukraine in 2022. So this measure was initiated under President Petro Poroshenko after Yanukovych was deposed in the Revolution of Dignity. This illustration also applies to civil servants who were active in the Communist Party of Soviet Union prior to 1991. And 2019, proposal by the newly elected President Volodymyr Zelensky. Volodymyr Zelensky proposed to expand the illustration to the officials who served under Poroshenko. Citing the dissatisfaction many Ukrainians felt with Ukraine's largely ineffective bureaucracy by the time of Poroshenko's presidential term ended. And yeah, it was made by the pro-presidential, Zelensky's powers like Sluha Narodu. Sluha Narodu is the political party that supports servant of people, Volodymyr Zelensky, and the Komanda is like the combination. So like people who are supporting Volodymyr Zelensky. But afterwards, of course, it's also very symbolical that "ze" is not widely used in Ukraine, because Latin letter Z, of course, is the symbol of Russian invasion. Maybe you remember they marked their tanks with Z or Z. Continuing the process of decommunization. So 18 parties were banned by a court decision in 2022, in autumn of 2022. Several decisions by several courts. Among them, 7 of left political ideology. So like post-Soviet political ideology. For example, the Socialistic Party of Ukraine. But the main reason was that the representatives of those parties were proclaiming pro-Russian narratives, that they were agents of Russia on Ukrainian soil. So, and I would like to, let's say, finalize my talk, my part of talking, and I would like to mention once more, I would like to mention that Ukraine is the frontier of Europe now. Please stand with Ukraine. And thank you for your support. And we will continue to cooperate and incorporate our forces toward the Ukrainian Eurointegration processes. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer them. If anybody also online would like to address me any questions, feel free to ask.
Am I online?
Yeah, online. We can hear you.
Okay, yes.
In a moment,
well,
I will.
Thank you very much for this very comprehensive and very thorough. Excuse me, I have to tell my partner that I'm actually talking on the. Motek! Yeah, okay, good. Yes, she understands now because she thinks I'm talking to her. Thank you very much for very comprehensive. I mean, needless to say, it's a story of nation forming. I think the pattern is similar to nation forming processes in the past and present in other parts of the world, but very clear and very comprehensive. I missed one particular aspect of this, which is the role of Poland. And in particular, and before Poland even existed as a state, the role of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, because the whole of west of Ukraine was actually not part of the Russian Empire, but it was part of the Austrian-Hungarian monarchy, more specifically the Kingdom of Poland within the Austrian-Hungarian monarchy. And also, I mean, as you are of course aware, in the interwar period, it was eastern Poland. And there was a lot of conflict between Ukrainian nationalists at that time, already in existence, and the Poles. And this, I think, also explains the painful history of Ukraine in the Second World War, when, if I may say it very forthwith, Ukrainian nationalists actually sided with the Germans against the Poles. And there's a famous Volhynian massacre, which was an expression of this. I'm saying this first of all because as a one-time Austrian, I'm interested in that particular part of history. But more importantly, I think this is very important to understand the current situation and the current relation between Poland and Ukraine, and the underlying tensions which still exist between these two countries, which could be very, very important for the future of Ukraine. So that was one aspect that I was missing. I'm not proposing for you to sort of tell this whole story now, but I feel it's something that I should draw attention to. Thank you.
Thank you for this question and outlining this Ukrainian and Polish, Ukrainian, Hungarian, and let's say relations between Ukrainian state and those states which are to the west of its borders.
You might add Slovakia to this.
Slovakia, of course, right.
And Romania, because,
and Romania as well, and Moldova as well. And, history shows that the most, how to say, rivalry is usually between very close and friendly neighbors. I would say that you are completely right about all those entangled parts and relations between the states. My mission today, as I saw it, as I constructed for me, was to explain why Ukraine internally and maybe externally promotes its positions, right? So why Ukraine wants to be the part of the EU. So for what actually this struggle is all about. So the arguments. But I clearly know that the history of the Polish and Lithuanian Commonwealth is also very entangled, and it incorporates not only Poland and Ukraine, but also Belarus, also Baltic states, and all other states. And of course, Austro-Hungary as an empire, to which the western parts of Ukraine were the parts of this Austro-Hungarian empire. And collaboration, you've mentioned collaboration of Ukrainian nationalists during the Second World War, but my lecture could be without end, never-ending lecture, because I have another, not to highlight that this German-Ukrainian cooperation doesn't matter what kind of cooperation and between which forces, but it was already established during and after the First World War. And this is exactly the reason why I have already mentioned that I avoided the part of Ukrainian statehood building between 1917 and 1921, because we know that during 1918, the second Ukrainian Hetmanate was, let's say, re-established, and it was promoted by German Empire. And not only by proclaiming or financially, it was supported military with a military corps. So I clearly understand that, and as let's say I could call myself an expert in politics of memory, and I have an advice. that we should, with knowing and acknowledging history, we should think about the future and constructing our ties and our relations with future partners. And Poland, Hungary, Slovakia,
Romania.
those states are at the moment partners and supporters of Ukraine, friends of Ukraine, but in the future they will be even closer. We will be even closer. So I hope that I answered your question in this, like not very directly, of course, but I would like to emphasize on the reason of contemporary situation in Ukraine, the reason why Ukraine decided, or Ukrainian people decided on the Eurointegration aspirations of us, of Ukrainians. Yeah, this is my answer.
Thank you. I have one more question. Where's the cat?
She's back in Mannheim, home.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
I was hoping to see the cat.
Not
No,
today.
don't worry. It's just
Not
a joke.
today.
Okay. I'm a lover of cats myself. So.
But she accompanies me during my lectures, from time to
In
time.
Mannheim, yeah. But you didn't take her to Slovakia. Yeah? Okay. Thank you very much. It was a very great lecture. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, maybe somebody else would like to ask a question. Can I, as a presenter, ask an audience a question? How many of that I have mentioned was new for you? Like, like from the blank piece of paper, so nothing was there. And I gave you totally new information, which didn't have any background for it. Yeah, please.
So I would say that I don't have a lot of culture about Eastern Europe and Central Europe. So for me, there were a lot of new information, like a lot of cultural information also. But maybe the Slovak colleagues understand more.
Perhaps if they would say something, I would appreciate it. Maybe somebody from online audience. Yeah, okay. And if nobody wants to share.
Maybe I would have a question. As you are working in Germany at the moment, could you please clarify us the attitude of Germans towards the Ukraine's EU integration? Or if you can observe some differences between Germans and Slovaks, for instance, in this issue?
Thank you very much for this question. And I guess, of course, I will speak only for myself because you asked about my observations, right? They will be like really personal. And I would like to connect these two remarks. That I would say that the situation is that people are not aware. They don't have to be aware. They don't have to be experts, right? They don't have to be experts in politics, in economy, in other international or regional policy development or something like that. But I have faced the situation of lack of knowledge that allows people to make decisions. And this lack of knowledge is a fault of, not in a bad way, but it's a consequence, let's say not fault, but consequence. It's a consequence of media policies that it's as Ukrainian, I would say that I am saying that it's very good that starting from 2022, from February 2022, Europe acknowledged that there is Ukraine for start, and that there is a war in Ukraine. And I guess it was too late because people were living in their bubbles, informational bubbles, and which is very natural, but very, very natural that every person lives in his or her informational bubble. Yeah, environment. But let's say, okay, the mission, if there is any mission in media, is also to inform people, to give them the understanding of what's happening without giving, like without forcing people to make evaluations. Only factual information. People can make decision. And regarding that, I'm facing that when discussing, I'm not the person who is initiating this type of discussions. Mm-hmm. But when people in Germany, for instance, propose a discussion on that topic, I face lack of information about Ukraine. Mm-hmm. And I face that discussing on something should start from this, a brief historical, political, cultural review, which will later help people to dig a little bit deeper in the context. As I give lectures in Germany, you asked about Germany. In Germany, German audience, they are also surprised about this Ukrainian German historical cultural ties between our people, nations, not only governments, but nations. That there were lots and lots of German settlements on the territory of Ukraine. And my great-grandmother was German. She lived in a town that was called Ganzovka, like Hansovka. And only several years ago, I realized Hansovka, Hans. So like Germans, like Fritz, Hans, so like other people call Germans Hansovka. So Germans lived there. Yeah, so this is very important to inform people and to show that we have already, throughout history, we have already these examples of our coexistence, cooperation, rivalry, problems, conflicts, and we could try to learn from that experience. Okay. If you want to, that I say that, okay, majority of Germans, they pro-Ukrainian Eurointegrations, or they are against it. I would say that majority is pro.
And regarding social media point of view, as you mentioned, you are observing the political history from the social media point of view, how it is influencing and so on.
Yeah.
What's your observation? Who is providing more accurate information, Germans or Slovaks, regarding the situation in Ukraine nowadays, or the conflict, or the EU integration, so current history, current period that we are living right now?
It's a very hard question. I don't have an answer for it. But I observed that German mass media or social media, they try to be official ones or major ones. I'm not talking about, social media accounts of private people who are expressing their own thoughts. They try to be, factual, only facts. At least they try to be, and I hear okay, you asked me about social media, but I'm, I'm thinking about radio because I listen to German radio during breakfasts, and they try to be factual without doing any conclusions or evaluations.
Okay,
like informing people. But once again, I don't know the situation properly in Slovakia. I don't know it. But once again, if analyzing media in general, so in Germany, there is let's say, different legislation apparat or apparatus on German media. There is a tax for media, and this tax allows media to be, let's say, independent from political camps. In other countries, where, for example, major medias are privately owned, of course, we can see other, like situation. But I'm not I cannot compare because I don't know the situation in Slovakia. I'm trying to answer what I know, but yeah, I cannot answer what I don't. Yeah. Okay. Okay, guys, if you are fed with me, we can